Okay, here we are. Welcome to Transaction Review and Calculator Practice. This is our April session. I'm super glad to have you along with me today. And all right, so let's just start with loaning $100,000. That's pretty much easy for everyone to figure out. Here's a really conservative private money loan that you could do. So here's a nice house. Property's worth, let's just say as is value right now, not after repaired value, not ARV, but as is value is 153.8. So if I want to be conservative as a private money lender, I'm not going to loan any more than 65% of that purchase. So that means the buyer has to come in with 53.8 and has to have his own closing costs and rehab costs, money to do the rehab. And I'm just bringing in this very conservative 65% LTV loan to value hard money loan. And, and let's just say that I'm just charging 10%. That's a very fair rate. And let's say it's for a year because they're going to rehab, fix, and flip this thing. And that turns out to $833 a month, interest only. Stop for a second. Let me bring up the financial calculator. And I think I need to go here. Okay, so here's our financial calculator. Let's just go over some of the numbers. How did I come up with that again? So we said the property was worth 153.8. And my maximum loan to value, LTV, is going to be 65%. So I'm going to go times 0.65. Remember, percentages, move the decimal 2 places to the right. I already know that that's my max investment, but 100,000, pretty close, right? So I go, okay, I can be good with $100,000 loan. Obviously, the difference between my loan and the purchase price, then he's got to come up with closing costs and have his own money for rehab. So how did I figure, okay, the $100,000 loan, that's going to go in here at PV, present value. On some financial calculators, it might be LA, loan amount. I also know that, also it's so easy, right? Just like times 0.10, right? That's the interest for a whole year for 12 months. Divided by 12 is 833. 33 per month. If I wanted to figure it out just using the calculator, I'd recall PV. And then if I want to put it here, I'm just going to show you different ways you can use the calculator. Future value is the balloon payment. This is money going out of my pocket now, money that's coming back later. That's the balloon. Here's the loan. And we wrote a 12-month note. And the interest rate here is 10. So I'm going to solve for the payment because I entered all of these four. Let's find the fifth. It's the exact same number. So just more ways to, and really it wouldn't matter. I could put 400 months in here, right? And it wouldn't change the payment, right? When we're talking about interest only. All right. So if you're the one, if you're the broker yourself or you're charging points, you can put, additional money in your pocket. But usually there's a broker or someone who's the deal finder, the rainmaker that's making some points up front. It pays off in 8 months. So let's figure that again. And these two numbers are always negative. That's how I put them in. And these three numbers are always positive. That's how I keep track of it. So just remember payments, future value, just my personal preference of how to do that. I'm going to change it to a positive number. So this came in 6 times for the investor. 8 times. Times 8. That's where we came up with our number of 6s there. And realistically, what if it takes, you get paid off, you had your 6,600 plus your 100,000 back, and maybe it takes you 4 months. It's not unrealistic. It might take you 4 months to get your money back out. Let's say you had another $100,000 loan. Unlikely it would be exactly the same, but just, what if? So basically you had 0% for 4 months and 10% for 8 months. So the 666 divided by 100,000 is how we come up with your 7%. If you only had, even if you're only down 1 month out of the year, you get paid off, and then like right away you get a deal, it closes 2, 3, 4 weeks later, you're still down a month, right? So even if you got, let's do 9 times 11, you got 91 divided by 100,000. Okay, you're basically making 9%. You know, you can say all day long that, hey, yeah, I only lend my money out at 10%, nothing less, or 9% or 12%, whatever your number is. But unless you got to factor in that downtime, that's just a real life sort of number that people sort of kind of forget about. And they say sometimes they'll put their money on the sidelines for 6 months waiting for just the right deal. Okay, I have some people say, no, unless I get like at least 11%, I'm not going to loan out my money. Well, they'll let their money sit there for 6 months. So by the time they lend it out, they're making half that, you know, if they're lucky 5 or 6%. But let's say this is pretty realistic, maybe somewhere between 7 and 9%, even if you're lending out at 10. So just keep that in the back of your mind. All right, so let's move on. If we buy a discounted note for $100,000, same 100,000, we just play it a little bit differently. Okay. This house, someone who owned it, let's just say, what's a typical scenario? Somebody, okay, mom and dad die and they leave the estate. In the estate, there's this house, and they do owner carry to the tenant. And let's say that this property, I want to keep as much as I can apples to apples. So let's say it's about $160,000. Okay, really similar to the last property we just loaned on. And let's say that tenant has been very dutiful and saving their money, and they've got a 20% down payment, which is great, right? There's a reason why conventional lending requires 20% down. And the reason is because statistically speaking, there's a much, much, much lower incidence of default. So the 10% on an owner occupied is considered acceptable, but 20% and plus is, I mean, the more the better. There's nothing that can replace protective equity in a deal, right? When we did the loan just before, we had the guy come in with 35% equity, 35% of the purchase price, 20% down on an owner occupant is really great. And so these kids on the house that they inherited, there's a note and first deed of trust, right? Or mortgage, depending on the state. And it, with a UPB or principal balance of $128,000. And we'll do the math on this a little bit later, but 128 and 32 add up to 160. And let's say that those kids, they don't want to hang out and receive the payment. They want to cash out now and split the money up and go their separate ways. So we're going to come in and buy it for $100,000, just to put that same $100,000 to work. So let's do the math. So what are we going to make on this note? We're going to talk about what is the yield or the ROI if it goes to full maturity, which is 29 years from now. And then we're going to do the thing with discounted notes that you will never ever have with the short-term loans is that statistically speaking, these notes pay off sooner than expected, and it gets you that unearned discount that's can be so attractive. Okay, this is where I'm going to bring up, and we're going to go over these numbers. So when you find a note or you help a note get created by working with the agent, so let's just take $160,000. That was the price, and it was a 20% down payment, right? 0.2. That's how we come up with the $32,000 minus the purchase price leaves us 80% of the note, which is $128, and that's going to go here in my present value. This is just my custom. There's other ways to use this thing, and I would say that In a Day Development does a phenomenal job with their app. If you don't have it on your iPhone or